everyone, to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Harford County. I'm Reverend Jay Brooks. My pronouns are she, her. Leading the service with me today are Worship Associate Valerie Green and Music Director Brenna Kupperman at the piano.
I'd like to welcome you all also, add that to Reverend Jay's welcome. Our building is situated on the native lands of the Susquehannock people. As a community, we hope to promote greater understanding of Indigenous peoples' concerns and rights.
Whatever faiths you have known, if any, you are welcome here. Whatever your race or where you were born, whatever your gender, you are welcome here. Whoever you are and whomever you love, you are welcome here.
Unitarian Universalism is a religious tradition that values diversity and embraces the wisdom of all faiths. We use science, reason, and the gifts of the Spirit to explore life's mystery and meaning.
We gather in community to restore the balance of our spirits, to celebrate the joys of life and find the strength to meet our sorrows, and in the earliest meaning of the word worship, to consider ideas that are worthy of our time and attention.
In this tradition, we know that people need not think alike to love alike.
During the month of February, our learning and worship theme is inclusion. It's also Black History Month. Today, we honor both ideas as we consider the 1947 Freedom Train, which was an actual train carrying America's founding documents, and the powerful responsive poem by Black American poet Langston Hughes, who alerted the nation to the inherent contradiction of a freedom train passing through segregated stations in the South. Now may the music of the traditional African-American gospel song, "This Train is Bound for Glory," help to center us as we enter into a time of worship.
This train is bound for glory, this train. This train is bound for glory, this train. This train is bound for glory. Don't carry nothing but the righteous and the holy. This train is bound for glory, this train. This train don't care no gamblers, this train. This train don't care no gamblers, this train. This train don't care no gamblers, liars, thieves, no big shot ramblers. This train don't care no gamblers, this train. This train don't care no liars, this train. This train don't care no liars, this train. Hey, this train don't care no liars. She's streamlined and a midnight flyer. This train don't care no liars, this train. This train don't care no smokers, this train. This train don't care no smokers, this train. Yeah, this train don't care no smokers, two-bit liars, small-time jokers. This train don't care no smokers, this train. This train don't care no conmen, this train. This train don't care no conmen, this train. Say this train don't care no conmen, wheeler dealers here and gone, man. This train don't care no conmen, this train. This train don't care no rustlers, this train. This train don't care no rustlers, this train. this train, street walkers to Bedhurst is bound for glory. This train is bound for glory. This train is bound for glory. This train is bound for glory. Don't carry nothing but the righteous and the holy. This train is bound for glory. This train. So this train, this train, this train, this train.
We do this for our ancestors who taught us through their visions, their actions for justice and hope. We do this for our children who are learning the traditions we teach and learn more than our words. We do this for ourselves so that we are inspired to remember our beginnings and reflect on who we are now and spread our wings as we understand who we seek to become.
Our call to worship is from UU Minister Mark Morrison Reed. The central task of the religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind each to all. There is a connectedness, a relationship discovered among the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. Once felt, it inspires us to act for justice. And now let's rise or remain seated, whichever is more comfortable for you, as we sing together, We Give Thanks. It's number 1010 in the Teal hymnal, and there will be some additional lyrics for verses 2 and 3.
We give thanks for this precious day, for gathered here. It's time to share love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for a face that's free. No creed allowed on theology. Give thanks for a faith that's free. Oh, we give thanks for community, for the power of love, graciously, making sorrows light, celebration bright. Oh, we give thanks for community.
Reverend Bill Singford is senior minister of the First Unitarian Church of Portland, Oregon. He was the first African American to be president of the Unitarian Universalism Association. The editor of a volume of meditations called To Wake, To Rise, Reverend Singford has long given consideration to how we build the beloved community. Here are some of his thoughts. Our Universalist heritage will not let me go. I still believe, as deeply as I believe anything, that each and every one of us is a child of God, that the spirit of life moves even in those who would send us backward toward the lost Eden of prejudice and rigid notions of what is acceptable that crippled so many and took advantage of most. It will take more than sound bites to point us toward the beloved community. There is a belief in the African American tradition, a statement of faith that says, we can find a way out of no way. I hope you find inspiration to wake and to rise so that we one another in living as if love were real, even in these divided days, by our living, make it so.
Our early Freedom School Bus, adapted from an amazing book called Ain't You Got a Right to the Tree of Life? The People of St. John's Island, South Carolina. Their Faces, Their Words, and Their Songs by Guy and Candy Carawan. Esau Jenkins was born in 1910 on St. John's Island, South Carolina, way before the Civil War, beginning in the 1600s. White plantation owners got land grants, that means free land, to settle St. John's Island. The owners, West Africans as slaves to worship, until 1920, when the first bridge was built. The only way off the island was by boat. Even after the Civil War and the abolition of slavery, things weren't good for the people of St. John's. Segregation, Jim Crow laws, and underfunding of Black schools meant that most people on the majority Black island didn't get much schooling or have much in the way of opportunity. Esau Jenkins was 10 years old when he left school to work at menial jobs. After a few years, when he was 14, he decided that he needed more education. Esau went to see Septima Clark, the teacher at the St. John's Black School. He said, I want to learn to read. I know I'm kind of old, but can I join us? Of course, Septima said. Despite the awkwardness of being a teenager sitting in school kids, Esau persisted. It took a while because he still had to work. Eventually, as an adult, he graduated from high school. It was a proud day. Esau may not have had many opportunities on St. John's, but he had a wide vision, and he had the determination to find a way out of no way. In 1948, when he began training St. Charles to register to vote. I can't register to vote, one of them said. I can't read, so there's no way I can pass that literacy test they have for voters. Then learn to read, Esau said. You ride this bus back and forth to work every day, right? That's great. I'll teach you while you're on the bus. Soon it wasn't just one person. It was lots of people. It was grown-ups who had left school to work and never got back to education. But that bus Esau drove, it became a school bus, literally. When Esau and his old teacher Septima saw how hard Black citizens on St. John's were working so they could pass the voter test, they realized that there were a lot of people in South Carolina who would vote if only they could read. And voting would mean rights, participation, and power. Esau and Septima began setting up citizenship schools, often called freedom schools, where Black adults could learn not only how to read, but also about their civil rights. Septima later said that the people who left these training sessions and went home to teach and to work in voter registration drives, they went home and they didn't take it anymore. They started their own citizenship classes, discussing the problems in their own towns. How come the pavement stops where the Black section begins? Asking questions like that, and then knowing who to go to talk about that or where to protest it. Esau and Septima had started a movement. It spread all over the South. The freedom schools were central to the Southern Civil Rights Movement and to voting rights for Black Americans. It began with Esau on the Freedom School bus.
Each Sunday, we invite those gathered here to support the mission of this congregation by offering financial contribution. With love at the center, members here care for one another and extend that care into a wider community through actions of equity and justice, which, no matter how small, work towards the transformation of our world. This fellowship intentionally welcomes the pluralism of theological beliefs as members seek to learn and grow, acknowledging our interdependence as we help each other towards deeper understanding. Financial contributions allow this congregation to reach out to all who seek a life-affirming message of love and hope. If you're online, click the link in the Zoom chat to contribute. If you're on site, you may place a donation in the basket or use your device and find the donate link. I try so hard not to say donut there. The donate link on uufhc.net. Whatever method of giving you choose, your generosity helps to grow a healthier and more joyful UU community, and in keeping our religious heritage to draw the circle of love and justice just a little bit wider.
Okay, in this world, just to center you where you are, in this worship service that invites us to lean even more deeply into our mission as Unitarians, we renew weekly our commitment to respond out of deep care for one another. So now is the time to share briefly a joy, a sorrow, a gratitude, something you carry deeply within your heart this morning. If you're on site in the sanctuary, please come forward and speak into the microphone while Valerie lights a candle, or Valerie can bring you a microphone if you raise your hand. If you're on Zoom, put in the chat the message you'd like to share, and Brenna will read it as Valerie lights a candle. A few gentle reminders. This isn't a time for announcements or politics. Say your first name, and please share from your heart and from your own experience. Be mindful not to share from anyone else's experience unless you have their express permission to do so. As we begin, let's take a moment to remember those who were killed in the collision of helicopter and airliner at Reagan National Airport on Wednesday, and as well those killed in Philadelphia in a medical aircraft plane crash. We know that every one of them was beloved. We here are among the many who mourn their tragic loss. Let's hold them in love as Valerie lights a candle. And I have a message now from one of our own, David, who's
Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom of me. And before I be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. No more weeping, no more weeping, no more weeping over me. And if I be a slave, I be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom has me. And if I be a slave, I be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. And before I be a slave, I be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free.
This next reading is Freedom Train, the 1947 poem by Langston Hughes, published in Our World magazine, Our World, a Black-owned magazine, in its September 1947 issue. And in it, Hughes is commenting on this plan to bring America's founding documents all over the country. And he wonders about what happens when the Freedom Train gets to the segregated stations in the South. And a word about the language. This is a poem that Hughes intentionally wrote in the Black vernacular of the time. And he was celebrated among people of color for the way he captured the feelings of ordinary Black people. Literary critics, white literary critics, didn't like this so much. And one of the things Hughes famously said was, if white people like to read my poetry, that's fine, but I don't care. We're going to take turns reading in a way that reflects the design of the poem. The sections that Valerie is reading are in the center, and they're centered. The ones I'm reading are in separate paragraphs that are flush left. So that must have meant something to Hughes. So we're going to try to capture some of that, whatever exactly he intended, by using the two different voices. So, Valerie.
I read in the papers about the Freedom Train. I heard on the radio about the Freedom Train. I seen folks talking about the Freedom Train. Lord, I've been a-waiting for the Freedom Train.
Down south in Dixie, only train I see's got a Jim Crow car set aside for me. I hope there ain't no Jim Crow on the Freedom Train. No backdoor entrance to the Freedom Train. No signs four-colored on the Freedom Train. No white folks only on the Freedom Train.
I'm gonna check up on this Freedom Train.
Who's the engineer on the Freedom Train? Can a coal-black man drive the Freedom Train? Or am I still a porter on the Freedom Train? Is there ballot boxes on the Freedom Train? Do colored folks vote on the Freedom Train? When it stops in Mississippi, will it be made plain everybody's got a right to board the Freedom Train?
Somebody tell me about this Freedom Train.
The Birmingham station's marked colored and white. The white folks go left, the colored go right. They even got a segregated lane. Is that the way to get aboard the Freedom Train?
I gotta know about this Freedom Train.
If my children ask me, Daddy, please explain why there's Jim Crow stations on the Freedom Train, what shall I tell my children? You tell me, 'cause freedom ain't freedom when a man ain't free.
Maybe they explains it on the Freedom Train.
When that train goes steaming through South Carolina, will them Greenville lynchers pay it any mind? Or will that 12-man jury what let 'em loose turn their heads and spit tobacco juice?
Wonder, will they spit on the Freedom Train?
When my old mother in Atlanta, 83 and black, gets in line to see the freedom, will some white man yell, "Get back, a Negro's got no business on the freedom track"?
Mister, I thought it were a Freedom Train.
Her grandson's name was Jimmy. He died at Anzio. He died for real. It weren't no show. The freedom that they carrying on this Freedom Train, is it for real or just show again?
Jimmy wants to know about this Freedom Train.
Will his Freedom Train come zooming down the track, gleaming in the sunlight for white and black, not stopping at no stations marked colored nor white, just stopping in the fields in broad daylight, stopping in the country in the wide open air, where there never was no Jim Crow signs nowhere, no welcoming committees, nor politicians of note, no mayors and such, for which colored can't vote, and nary a sign of a color line, for the Freedom Train will be yours and mine. Then maybe from their graves in Anzio, the GIs who fought will say, "We wanted it so." Black men and white will say, "Ain't it fine?" At home, they got a train that's yours and mine.
Then I'll shout, "Glory for the Freedom Train." I'll holler, Blow your whistle, freedom train. Thank mighty God, there's a freedom train. Get on board our freedom train.
The freedom train is coming. Can't you hear that whistle blowing? It's time to get your ticket, y'all, and get on board. It's time for all the people to take this freedom ride. Got to get together, work for freedom side by side. That's why I tell you, I'm gonna ride on the freedom train. Ain't gonna live this way again. I gotta get on the freedom train from this day on. I'll be a free man. Yes, I will be a free man. Looks like the times are changing. The train is waiting at the station. Gotta go up to the mountaintop and get on board. We're gonna ride on through the valley under the clear blue sky. Every man proud with his head held high. We gotta ride the freedom train. We ain't gonna live this way again. We gotta get on the freedom train from this day on. We'll be free, yeah, yeah. We'll be free, yeah, yeah. Got to ride the freedom train, yeah, yeah. Got to ride the freedom train, yeah, yeah. Got to ride the freedom train from this day on. We'll be free.
Freedom train. Idea of somehow sharing America's founding documents with Americans all over the country, most of whom would never travel to the National Archives in Washington, D.C., emerged in April 1946, not long after the end of World War II. The initial thought was with contrasting examples from Nazi Germany. Eventually, the decision was made that the charter documents of liberty would speak for themselves. President Truman agreed, and instead of expecting Americans to go to the nation's capital, a train could take the documents all around the country to all the American people. It would be sort of a liberty train, they thought. But it wasn't in the budget. So the movers and shakers gathered movie moguls and captains of industry, the head of CBS and 20th Century Fox, William Randolph Hearst, the publisher of the Washington Post, the head of Chase Bank, Henry Ford II, Irving Berlin, David O. Selznick, and of course, representatives from the Justice Department, the Librarian of Congress, and the head of the National Archives. A few people with active public consciences, including a couple of prominent Black civic leaders, Walter White, president of the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and the Urban League's head, Lester Granger, both Black men. The financially savvy among the moguls and captains explained to the government representatives that to engender the level of contributions needed to fund the project, it would be wise to create a 501c3 tax-exempt educational charity, so donations could be tax-free. They did, and they called it the American Heritage Foundation, not the one that's around today. And in consultation with groups like the Advertising Council, the print media, and the motion picture industry, they decided to name it the Freedom Train. The funds to support the project rolled in. They decided that they would have a rededication week in each city. The train would stay in each city for 1 week. Each day of the week would have a different theme: free speech one day, freedom of religion another day, women, veterans. Visitors would be invited to sign a freedom pledge. The freedom pledge. Here it is. I am an American, a free American, free to speak without fear, free to worship God in my own way, free to stand for what I think is right, free to oppose what I believe is wrong, free to choose those who govern my country. This heritage of freedom I pledge to uphold for myself and all mankind. The promotional effort was massive. Even Captain Marvel got on the Freedom Train. The DC comic Volume 1, number 85 of Captain Marvel Adventures had a 4-part story about Captain Marvel's triumphant victory over the evil villain who sought to disrupt the Freedom Train. To quote the villain, "I am the world's maddest scientist. I hate freedom. I stand for tyranny, and I'm going to see that the Freedom Train fails in its mission." Of course, Captain Marvel wants to see to it that the Freedom Train rolls on, but he knows there's no easy way to hold on to freedom. He says, freedom is something you have to fight for. The issue sold for 10 cents in 1948. Yesterday, it was available on eBay for $159. Thanks to Walter White of the NAACP and Lester Granger of the Urban League, in July 1947, well before the train was to begin its journey in the fall, the newly organized board of the newly certified American Heritage Foundation considered the unpleasant reality of segregated train stations in the South. Granger said, "It would be a monumental travesty upon our democratic concept if the Bill of Rights were to be exhibited to an American audience rigidly segregated by race." To its credit, the board decided that it would not allow the train to visit cities that refused to allow Black and white Americans to mingle freely in the station and on the train. But the foundation didn't announce this decision until September 1947, after members of the public, like Langston Hughes, had begun raising the issue in no uncertain terms. Black-owned magazine Our World published the Langston Hughes poem in its September 1947 issue, just as the train was preparing to start its 2-year journey to more than 300 cities. The laws, well, you heard the poem. I mean, wow. The laws segregating Blacks from whites in the 49 southern cities that were on the Freedom Train's itinerary were the antithesis of the train's message and purpose. The Freedom Train carried Jefferson's handwritten draft of the Declaration of Independence. It carried George Washington's personal signed copy of the U.S. Constitution. It carried the Bill of Rights. It carried the Emancipation Proclamation. It carried the 13th Amendment, which made slavery unconstitutional. The 14th, which guaranteed birthright citizenship and due process for all citizens. And it carried the 15th Amendment, which created as a constitutional right the power for citizens to vote. These rights were in many respects unfulfilled in 1947. Remember Esau Jenkins driving that bus in South Carolina, teaching his passengers to read so they could register to vote. That was 1948, when the freedom schools were just a gleam in his eye. There was such a long way to go. There's still a long way to go, but we can find a way out of no way. It took Brown versus Board of Education to end legal segregation in 1954. It took a civil rights movement to get the 1964 Civil Rights Act and the 1965 Voting Rights Act. And these fundamental rights are still under assault today. For some, the Freedom Train was an opportunity for political grandstanding, but it emerged and gained momentum from the idea that America's foundational concept of freedom and participatory democracy are contained in these documents that are the heritage of every American. Ideas are powerful. The free world had just ended a war to overcome the belief that some people are destined to rule over others and could condemn one group of human beings as less than human. The Americans of that era had a role in resisting those ideas, and they were proud of it. And those precious, powerful documents, those charters of liberty, flawed though they all are to some degree, they contain ideas that inspire us today. Inspire and perhaps inflame us to find a way out of no way. The Freedom Train was painted red, white, and blue. It's on the cover of your order of service. Its engine was baptized the Spirit of 1776, using waters taken from the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Great Lakes, and the Gulf of Mexico. The Freedom Train's tour began at Philadelphia on September 17th, 1947, the 160th anniversary of the signing of the Constitution. There were protests in Philadelphia and New York. The issue of segregated Southern stations was a serious concern, and the Foundation's belated announcement of its no segregation policy was received with skepticism. Paul Robeson, the well-known Black actor and singer, began reading the Langston Hughes poem Freedom Train at all his concerts. Imagine Paul Robeson. The Birmingham stations marked colored and white. The white folks go left, the colored go right. They even got a segregated lane. Is that the way to get aboard the Freedom Train? I got to know about this Freedom Train. Paul Robeson. So what happened? 47 of the 49 southern cities agreed that when the Freedom Train pulled into their stations, there would be no segregation. The media later carried photos and videos of Black families and white families standing side by side, adults and children, reading those precious, powerful charters of freedom. Only Memphis and Birmingham refused to suspend their Jim Crow laws when the Freedom Train rolled through. The Foundation tried to reason with Memphis, but the city's leaders held firm. They would not desegregate their station or the train for the Freedom Train. The Foundation to its credit, did not relent. The freedom train would roll through Memphis. It would not stop. There was tremendous backlash in Memphis against the city's leaders. And there was an outpouring of public support for the foundation's stance against segregation. The president of the Tuskegee Institute said the foundation's handling of Memphis was courageous and that it would generate an atmosphere in which the full significance of the freedom train may be appreciated. Towns that weren't on the itinerary volunteered to take the place of Memphis. Leaders in other cities celebrated the foundation's refusal to stop in Memphis. And then there was Birmingham. Some of us here may recognize the name Bull Connor, the Birmingham Commissioner of Public Safety, who became infamous a few years later for unleashing attack dogs on peaceful protesters and turning fire hoses on children participating in a peaceful protest march. He was one of the deciders in Birmingham, but it wasn't his decision alone. Birmingham's municipal officials got together and suggested a compromise, a sort of segregation light. Maybe the different colors could take turns, different days, different hours. The foundation held its ground. It insisted on a fully integrated station, train, and rededication week. Birmingham continued to refuse. So on Christmas Eve, 1947, just 5 days before the train was scheduled to come through, the foundation canceled the Birmingham stop. Walter White said the decision to withdraw the freedom train from Birmingham and thus put the Bill of Rights above local segregation laws is the greatest Christmas gift to the cause of democracy which can be given. The greatest Christmas gift to the cause of democracy. Can you feel it, what they must have felt then? Langston Hughes and Walter White and Paul Robeson and all the Jimmies who died at Anzio. What must it have meant to them, this public, resounding rejection of the color line, of signs that channeled some human beings this way and others that? The struggle wasn't over. The struggle isn't over. Today we are in our time, once again, resisting some of the same immoral notions that Americans thought they had defeated in 1945. But consider all the ways that people of goodwill can find power. Esau Jenkins driving his bus. Langston Hughes bringing his sharp, acerbic wit, his sarcasm, his authenticity, his willingness to hold up to the light the contradictions and absurdities of a freedom train in the segregated South. And the foundation, despite all those movers and shakers, somehow the foundation became immersed in those precious, powerful charter documents of freedom. They began riding the singing rails of democracy as they imagined taking the freedom train all over the country. The foundation train held to its vision, and 47 cities suspended their own laws to keep the freedom train on track. That's no small thing. There's a lot of insistence on states' rights then and now. There's also the power of the idea of freedom and the vision of a better world. Does that seem impossible today? Does it seem naive? Can we say that on the train to glory, there are going to be no liars and no scoundrels. Maybe it is naive, but what did Langston Hughes do when he faced that kind of impossibility? Find a way out of no way and blow your whistle, freedom train. And now I invite you to stand or remain seated as is comfortable for you as we sing in the Teal hymnal, number 151, I Wish I Knew How.
I wish I knew how it would feel to be free. I wish I could break all those chains holding me. I wish I could say all the things I could say 'em loud, say 'em clear for the whole to hear. Say 'em loud, say 'em clear for the whole world to hear. I wish I could share all the love in my heart. You that's to keep us apart. I wish you could know what it means to be me. See, agree, everyone should be free. And you see, agree, everyone should be free. I wish I could give all I'm long to give. I wish I could live like I'm longing to live. I wish I could do all the things I can do when I'm waiting. Be starting anew. When I'm waiting, starting anew. I wish I could be like a bird in the sky. How sweet it would be if I found I could fly. I'd soar to the sun and look down at the sea. Then I'd sing 'cause I know how it feels to be free. Then I'd sing 'cause I know how it feels to be free.
In this beloved community, we sing songs and tell stories that create a shared experience, an experience that helps us know the bonds that bind each to all. Together, we can help each other make a way out of no way. May this community always be open to welcome everyone who arrives here, arrives with all the strength and frailty of their authentic humanity. And when we say we, may we mean an ever-expanding, ever-widening circle that includes all who seek, all who yearn, and all who love. Now, please join in saying the words to extinguish a chalice as Valerie puts the chalice flame out. We extinguish this flame but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into all the world.
March the Freedom Highway. March each and every day. Yeah, march the Freedom Highway. March each and every day. Made up my mind, I won't turn around. Made up my mind, I won't turn around. There is just one thing, March, I don't understand, March. Why some folks think freedom, March, it's not for every man, March. There are so many people, March, living the life perplexed, March, wondering in the mind, March, what's gonna happen next, and then we're gonna march the Freedom Highway. March each and every day, yeah, march the Freedom Highway, yeah, march each and every day. Yes, we want peace, march, if it can be found, march. I'm gonna die, and I'm not turning around, march. Think I voted for the right man. Said we'll overcome, march. Stay on the Freedom Highway until the day is done, march, yeah, march the Freedom Highway. March each and every day. Yeah, march the Freedom Highway. March each and every day. Yeah, march each and every day.
All right, so are we rolling on that freedom train? Before everyone starts to roll, we have a few announcements.
First, I just want to thank the tech team back there in the corner. Awesome job today. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Really do. Next Sunday is our regular, it says, second Sunday potluck lunch. Now, if you all come out next Sunday and stay for the potluck, it won't be regular. It'll be special. So you all come out next week for that. And afterward, there's a book conversation about Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart. And at 1 p.m., join Brenna for a music retreat.
Please RSVP with me if you're coming.
Did anyone
No,
else?
we didn't have anybody come up
Okay.
to make
Oh,
it.
whoop.
But of course. Come on. You need to use a microphone, my dear.
For those at home. Maybe that one's on.
There you go.
Very quickly, on the back of the order of service, it announces our Exploring Membership class for any visitors that might be interested in finding out more about the fellowship, and it outlines the sessions. So Glenn Brown and I will be leading that starting next Sunday. Thank you. Just let us know if you plan to attend.
Thank you, Marlene. Thank you, Glenn. And save the date. March 1st is a special date. It is a special date for a stewardship celebration and dinner. So you'll be hearing more about that fairly soon. And that's it. Enjoy your coffee and conversation and have a great rest of the day.